Hi everyone. This is for my students of architecture. Others can kind of scroll down. Maybe you can hit a like. Yeah. All right. So you see, I had been practicing as an architect for the past 2 decades across India and abroad. With my hands-on experience in designing numerous projects, I have formulated some very basic strategies for my students of architecture. Well, let's discuss about how to create a powerful and compelling architectural drawing. Yeah. You know, great drawings tell us a great story. And architecture is all about storytelling. Great drawings invite us to question and how and why we need to read them as built spaces and what we imagine between the lines. They are architecture in their own right. When creating the perfect drawing, whether a plan, sketch, or a perspective, there are a series of moves you need to keep in mind, which you can use to illustrate your particular story that you want to tell. I'll give you some quick tips. These tips will help you create powerful and compelling architectural drawings. Whether guiding or representing drawings are tied to practices of making. So as you make, it's important to consider how elements like color, texture, perspectives shape the way we understand a particular drawing. Students of architecture can take a note of this. These are some very basic points which you need to consider when you are trying to create a perfect architectural drawing. Right? Firstly, play with colors. Color can bring a drawing to life. There are basically, 3 categories of colorization: black and white drawings, drawings with a few colors, and an entire color presentation or a rendering. Yeah. In a black and white drawing or grayscale presentation, you only show lines with various thicknesses, in addition to shapes and shadows. I'll come to that later. In choosing only a few colors, you can focus on the lines or the individual elements. Mark my words here. For instance, if you may have a grayscale presentation with bright and red highlights or section plane parts. Again, for instance, in a full color presentation, you can render out a drawing fully using Photoshop maybe, or any other drawing software that is, and other digital tools, or by simply using a hands-on watercolor, markers, brush pens, or paste. It is important to remember that color should be used intentionally, whether a render or an accent. To clarify an idea or bring awareness to an element of a design, you need to do this particular thing. Next, it's all about the details. The better the detail, the better the architectural drawing. Because it's the detail of a drawing that best show your understanding of texture, color, scale, light, and everything. Detail could mean the literal details of a building or construction, or the way that a drawing is executed at multiple scales. With details, you can also work through problem solving or define construction processes. You can see the evolution of a process or drawing and draw attention to various points through a particular work. The next point is find the right perspective. Perspective is about what you see is what you get. Perspective in a particular architectural drawing is a representation of an image as it would be perceived by the eye. Perspective is the view from a particular fixed viewpoint, and horizontal and vertical edges of the objects are represented by horizontal and vertical lines in that particular point. Lines leading away into the distance appear to converge at a particular vanishing point. And that is the basis of what this perspective is. Right? You see, it is important to understand the role of perspective and how it gives dimension to our drawings. So normal, conventional in architecture, drawing is to use 2-point perspective, with all the vertical lines drawn as verticals on the page. Different perspectives give us new ways to look at particular buildings, scenes, surfaces, or field conditions. Yeah. The next point, find new technologies. It is important to mention here the digital turn and how it has shaped the way we design and draw today. 2 decades back when I had started drawing, it was not this particular case. But today it is. We need to learn as we go. The digital turn in architecture has already gone through several stages and phases. Folding, non-linearity, hypersurfaces, to versioning, scripting, information modeling, parametricism, and so on. Today you can use programs like Grasshopper or so to generate widely complex and detailed drawings that create new ways to tell your particular story that you are going to narrate. Through these past 2 decades, I have closely seen the generation of images and form intricately tied to the way we make and how we consider drawings as a way of thinking. The first digital turn in architecture way back changed our ways of making. The second now changes our way of thinking. Let us face it. Today, as more and more of our artworks are created by algorithms, drawings will continue to be influenced by technology and artificial intelligence, and you need to face it. Control it today before it controls you. I have published a detailed article on this particular topic. Go back to my page sometime and have a look at it. Well, the next point is about, again, a very basic point. It's all about light and shade. Yeah? One of the most effective methods of making your drawings appear three-dimensional is to consider how light works. So you have to understand that if there is a source of light at a 45-degree angle, in which direction it is casting the light and the shade and the shadow. So a careful handling of light, the shadow and the tone help give definition to a particular form. Whether you have a single light source or many, a drawing and sketch can be quickly brought to life by understanding how light shapes a building or a particular composition. Yeah? The shadows within a perspective or elevation view should always be drawn in direct response to the forms that the light hits, the angle from which the light is coming from, and the intensity of the light source. See, there are basically 3 things to consider in this. For objects as well as buildings, you have a light side, you have a shadow side, and a cast shadow of that particular form. Remember that. As you draw, consider how a light affects the subject of your drawing and the character of the shadows that they generate. The next point is about line weights and styles. Either it is on paper, on a handstone, or it is scanned. As drawing, like architecture itself, often begins with single lines. Line can define, outline, highlight, and capture attention. A diversity of line styles and weights allow you to distinguish depths and emphasize different parts of a particular building or a drawing. A drawing can be quickly read as a flat when only a single type of line used as a sketch or a projection. Diversified lines can help your professors or your clients, whoever it may be, understand and differentiate the aspects of your work or the sketch itself. And it will be easier for them to understand your drawing, and it will be easier for you to narrate your particular story. You can diversify those lines through weights, thick and thin lines, maybe the movement of your hand, or through how a line is programmed with a software maybe, or you are using CAD, whatever further. Next point, texture matters. When we talk about texture in a drawing, we often refer to work's material quality. Through standing line quality, you can add different types of texture to surfaces, making them appear smooth, hard, soft, or abrasive, whatsoever. It's also important to remember how textures and tones combine and work alongside one another. Right? For instance, walls are often identified by different textures than glazings. And the contrast between a wall texture and a glazing texture can help you to make each element legible from one another and differentiate from one another. Varied densities of texture can create movement pattern, defining on fixtures and forms of reading and how you identify those parametric understanding of your particular design. And for now, when used creativity, texture can be the primary means of telling a story in architecture. Final point, create a visual hierarchy. In architecture, visual hierarchy refers to prioritizing an element or series of elements in your design. This method is used over a field condition where no greater weight is given to individual elements. Visual hierarchy allows you to focus on a certain aspects of the drawing and the composition. You can grab attention using size, color, line weight, or simply providing a white blank space in an otherwise crowded drawing. Visual hierarchy is also tied with layering, either it is on CAD or on hand, where you draw and overdraw and redraw on multiple levels or create multiple layers of drawings on top of one another to create depth. Layering can also relate to color, line work, or how you think about opacity. For instance, a black and white section drawing can use color on the plane of the section cut to highlight which part of the building has been cut through. Having said all of that, I strongly believe that there's a lot more to learn. And an architect will always be a student constantly learning. Let's start discussing your thoughts on this particular topic. Let me know your comments right in the box below. I'll get back to you. See you.